The sun was setting over Houston, Texas, casting long shadows across the Johnson Space Center. Inside the bustling mission control room, Sarah Chen sat at her console, her eyes fixed on the screens before her. It was just another quiet evening shift, or so she thought. A sudden beep from her computer made Sarah sit up straight. Her heart raced as she saw an unusual signal pattern flashing on her screen. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her headset. Sarah called over her supervisor, Dr. James Wilson. "Sir, I think you need to see this." Dr. Wilson leaned in, his bushy eyebrows furrowing as he studied the signal. "My God," he whispered. "Is that what I think it is?" Sarah nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "It looks like a distress signal. But sir, it's not coming from any of our satellites or ships." Dr. Wilson's eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes, sir. I think it's coming from outside our solar system." The news spread through mission control like wildfire. Within hours, space agencies around the world were alerted. The signal was unlike anything they had ever seen before. At NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C., Director Emily Rodriguez called an emergency meeting. Scientists, government officials, and military leaders from around the world joined via video conference. "Ladies and gentlemen," Director Rodriguez began, her voice firm but tinged with excitement. "We have received what appears to be an alien distress signal." A murmur rippled through the room. On screens around the world, faces showed a mix of disbelief, fear, and wonder. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a renowned astrophysicist from Japan, spoke up. "Director, have we managed to decode the signal?" Rodriguez nodded, gesturing to a nervous-looking man at the end of the table. "Dr. Alan Brenner, our lead cryptographer, will explain." Dr. Brenner stood up, clearing his throat. "The signal is complex, but we've managed to decipher some of it. It appears to be coming from a fleet of ships trapped in an asteroid field just beyond Mars." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Director Rodriguez raised her hand for silence. "There's more. Dr. Brenner, please continue." "The message indicates that their ships are damaged and running low on power. They're asking for help." The Chinese representative, General Lai, leaned forward. "How do we know this isn't a trap? It could be a hostile invasion force." Dr. Brenner shook his head. "The tone of the message suggests genuine distress. Plus, if they wanted to invade, why stop in the asteroid belt?" President Kimberly Shaw of the United States, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "Folks, we have a decision to make. Do we answer this call for help?" The room fell silent. The weight of the moment was not lost on anyone. This decision could change the course of human history. After a long pause, the Russian president, Dmitry Volkov, spoke up. "If we turn our backs on them, what does that say about humanity? We have a chance to make first contact, to show the universe who we are." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Director Rodriguez looked at President Shaw, who nodded slowly. "Very well," Rodriguez said, her voice strong and clear. "We will mount a rescue mission, but we need to move fast. Dr. Tanaka, how long do you think they can survive out there?" Dr. Tanaka did some quick calculations on her tablet. "Based on the signal strength and the estimated size of their fleet, I'd say they have about 3 months before their life support systems fail completely." President Shaw stood up, her decision made. "Then we have no time to waste. Director Rodriguez, you have full authority to use whatever resources you need. Let's show these aliens what humanity can do." As the meeting adjourned, a sense of purpose filled the room. Humanity was about to embark on its greatest adventure yet. In the coming days, the world would unite like never before, pooling its resources and knowledge for a single goal: to rescue a stranded alien fleet and make first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. The next few weeks would be crucial. As news of the alien signal spread, the people of Earth held their breath, wondering what this new chapter in human history would bring. One thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The world was buzzing with excitement and fear. News of the alien distress signal had leaked, and people everywhere were talking about it. In every country, on every street, the same question was on everyone's lips. Are we really going to rescue aliens? At Cape Canaveral, Florida, the scene was one of controlled chaos. Engineers and scientists from around the world had gathered to prepare for humanity's most ambitious space mission yet. Dr. Maria Santos, the lead engineer, stood in front of Earth's most advanced spaceship, the HS Hope. It was a massive vessel, gleaming in the Florida sunshine. "We've got 3 months to get this ship ready," she shouted to her team. "Let's make every second count." Inside the ship, Captain Jack Harper inspected the bridge. He was a veteran astronaut, but even he felt butterflies in his stomach. "This is going to be one hell of a ride," he muttered to himself. Meanwhile, in a high-tech lab in Tokyo, Dr. Yuki Tanaka was working on a revolutionary translation device. She hadn't slept in days, fueled by coffee and the excitement of potentially talking to aliens. "If this works," she said to her assistant, "we'll be able to understand any language in the universe." Back in Washington, D.C., President Shaw was in a heated discussion with her advisors. "We need to choose the right crew for this mission," she insisted. "They'll be representing not just America, but all of humanity." In the end, they decided on a truly international crew. Captain Harper would lead the mission. Dr. Santos would be the chief engineer. Dr. Tanaka would handle communications. They also selected Lai Wei, a brilliant Chinese physicist, and Amir Khan, a skilled Indian pilot. As the crew trained, the world watched. News channels showed daily updates on the mission's progress. Children in schools learned about space travel and dreamed of meeting aliens. Artists created paintings and songs about the upcoming adventure. But not everyone was happy. Outside the United Nations building in New York, protesters gathered. "What if the aliens are dangerous?" they shouted. "We're putting Earth at risk." Security forces had to protect the crew members and their families. Captain Harper's daughter was bullied at school by kids who said her dad was going to bring back evil space monsters. Despite the challenges, the preparations continued. In labs around the world, scientists developed new tools to deal with unknown alien technology. They created special suits that could withstand extreme temperatures and strange atmospheres. Food scientists worked on meals that could last for months in space without going bad. Psychologists prepared the crew for the mental challenges of the long journey and the shock of meeting alien life. As the launch date approached, tension grew. The crew said goodbye to their families, not knowing if they would ever see them again. Captain Harper hugged his daughter tight. "I'm doing this for you," he whispered, "to make the world a better place." The night before the launch, President Shaw gave a powerful speech to the world. "Tomorrow, we take our first step into a larger universe," she said. "We go not as Americans, or Chinese, or Russians, but as representatives of Earth. We go in peace, extending a helping hand to those in need." On launch day, millions gathered around TV screens and computers. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The engines of the HSS Hope roared to life. 7, 6, 5. The ground shook. 4, 3, 2. Smoke billowed around the launch pad. 1. With a deafening roar, the HS Hope lifted off. It rose slowly at first, then faster and faster, punching through the clouds and into the blue sky beyond. As the ship disappeared from view, a cheer went up around the world. Humanity had taken its first step towards the stars. The rescue mission had begun. On board the HSS Hope, Captain Harper looked at his crew. Their faces were a mix of determination and awe. "Well, team," he said with a smile, "let's go make history." The ship accelerated, leaving Earth behind. Ahead lay the unknown, filled with danger and wonder. The greatest adventure in human history had begun. The HS Hope zoomed through space, leaving Earth far behind. Inside the ship, the crew settled into their new home. Captain Jack Harper floated to the main viewport, staring at the tiny blue dot that was Earth. "It's strange," He said to no one in particular, "How small it looks from here." Dr. Maria Santos joined him. "Small, but worth protecting," she replied. Captain Harper nodded, his face serious. They both knew the importance of their mission. Days passed as the ship traveled deeper into space. The crew kept busy with their tasks. Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked on her translation device, muttering to herself in Japanese. Lai Wei ran simulations of possible alien technologies they might encounter. Amir Khan practiced tricky flight maneuvers in the ship's simulator. One day, as they passed the orbit of Mars, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the crew rushed to their stations. "What's happening?" shouted Captain Harper. "Solar flare," yelled Dr. Santos, her fingers flying over her console. "A big one, heading our way." The ship's computer had detected a massive burst of energy from the sun, hurtling towards them at incredible speed. If it hit them, it could fry their electronics and leave them stranded in space. "Amar, can you outrun it?" Captain Harper asked. The Indian pilot shook his head. "No, sir, it's too fast. We need another plan." Lai Wei spoke up. "I have an idea. If we can route all power to the shields and position the ship just right, we might be able to deflect most of the radiation." It was a risky plan, but they had no choice. "Do it," ordered Captain Harper. The next few minutes were tense. Amir maneuvered the ship into position while Lai Wei and Dr. Santos worked to strengthen the shields. The rest of the crew strapped in, holding their breath. The solar flare hit them like a tidal wave. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from consoles. For a moment, it seemed like everything would fall apart. But then, slowly, the shaking stopped. The lights came back on. They had made it. A cheer went up from the crew. They had faced their first major challenge and survived. Captain Harper smiled proudly at his team. "Great work, everyone. But stay alert. I have a feeling that won't be our last surprise." He was right. A few days later, as they entered the asteroid belt, they encountered another problem. The space around them was filled with rocks and debris, some as small as pebbles, others as big as mountains. "This is worse than we expected," said Amir, his hands tight on the controls. "The maps didn't show this much debris." Dr. Tanaka looked worried. Could this be why the alien fleet is stranded? Did they get damaged trying to navigate through this? As if to answer her question, a large rock suddenly appeared in front of them. Amir swerved hard, barely avoiding a collision. But the sudden movement sent the ship spinning. "Stabilizers are offline," shouted Dr. Santos. "We're tumbling out of control." For several terrifying minutes, the ship spun through space. The crew, strapped into their seats, could only watch as asteroids whizzed past their viewports. Finally, Amir managed to regain control. The ship steadied, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "Damage report," called Captain Harper. Dr. Santos checked her screens. "Minor damage to the outer hull, but all systems are functional." "We were lucky." As the crew worked to repair the damage, Captain Harper called a meeting. "We need to be more careful," he said. "We won't be any help to the aliens if we don't make it there ourselves." They decided to move slower, using the ship's advanced sensors to plot a safe path through the asteroid field. It would take longer, but it was safer. As they carefully navigated through the field of rocks, Dr. Tanaka suddenly gasped. "Captain," she said, her voice filled with awe. "Look at this." On the main screen, a sight appeared that took everyone's breath away. In the distance, barely visible among the asteroids, they could see a cluster of strange shapes that were clearly not natural. "Is that?" Lai Wei started to ask. Captain Harper nodded, his eyes wide. "Yes," he said quietly. "That's the alien fleet." The crew of the HFY Hope fell silent, staring at the screen. After all their preparation, all their challenges, they were finally here. Their real mission was about to begin. The crew of HFY Hope stared in awe at the alien ships on their view screen. The vessels were unlike anything they had ever seen. They looked like giant silver leaves, thin and delicate, each one at least twice the size of their own ship. "They're beautiful," whispered Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her eyes wide with wonder. Captain Jack Harper nodded, then straightened his uniform. "All right, people. This is what we've been preparing for. Dr. Tanaka, are you ready to try your translation device?" Yuki nodded nervously, her hands shaking slightly as she activated her invention. "Here goes nothing," she muttered. Captain Harper cleared his throat and spoke clearly into the communication system. "This is Captain Jack Harper of the Earth ship HFY Hope. We've received your distress signal, and we're here to help. Can you understand us?" For a long moment, there was silence. The crew held their breath, waiting. Then suddenly, the speakers crackled to life. A strange, melodic voice filled the bridge. "Earth, ship. Help? Yes. Understand. Mostly. We. Zar Khan. Great thanks." A cheer went up from the crew. Dr. Tanaka's device had worked. They were actually talking to aliens. "We're going to approach your ships now," Captain Harper continued. "Please don't be alarmed. We're here to assist you." As the HSS Hope drew closer to the alien fleet, they could see the damage. Many of the leaf-like ships had large tears in their sides, likely from collisions with asteroids. Lai Wei spoke up, his voice filled with concern. "Captain, look at their hulls. They seem to be made of some kind of organic material. No wonder they're having trouble in the asteroid field." Amir Khan nodded in agreement. "Our metal hull can take a lot more punishment than theirs. They must have been stuck here for a long time." As they neared the largest alien ship, they saw movement. A portion of the ship's surface rippled and then opened, revealing what looked like a docking bay. "I think they're inviting us in," said Dr. Maria Santos, excitement clear in her voice. Captain Harper made a quick decision. "All right. Dr. Tanaka, Lai Wei, you're with me. We're going to meet our new friends face to face. Dr. Santos, you have the bridge." The three of them put on their spacesuits and entered the airlock. As they floated towards the alien ship, Harper couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. What would these aliens look like? Would they be friendly? As they entered the alien ship, artificial gravity kicked in, and they found themselves standing in a large organic looking room. The walls seemed to pulse gently, as if the ship itself was breathing. Suddenly, a door, or what they assumed was a door, opened, and three figures entered. The aliens were tall and slender, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer. They had 4 arms and large almond-shaped eyes that blinked vertically. Instead of hair, they had what looked like delicate leaves growing from their heads. For a moment, both groups just stared at each other. Then one of the aliens stepped forward and spoke, its voice translating through Yuki's device. "Welcome, Earth friends. I am Zal, leader of the Zar Khan. We are grateful for your assistance." Captain Harper stepped forward as well, removing his helmet. "We're honored to meet you, Zal. I'm Captain Jack Harper. This is Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our communications expert, and Lai Wei, our physicist." Zal tilted its head, a gesture that seemed to indicate curiosity. "Your species, so different, yet you came to help. Why?" Harper smiled. "Because you needed help. On Earth, we believe in lending a hand to those in need, even if they're strangers." Zal's large eyes blinked rapidly. "Fascinating. We have much to learn from each other, it seems." As they began to discuss the situation and the repairs needed, Lai Wei noticed something strange. The ship's walls seemed to be reacting to their presence, changing color slightly where they stood. "Excuse me," he said to one of the other aliens. "Is your ship alive?" The alien made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Yes, in a way. Our ships are grown, not built. They are extensions of ourselves." This revelation stunned the human crew. The implications were enormous. If they could learn this technology, it could revolutionize space travel. As the meeting continued, both humans and aliens found themselves fascinated by each other. Despite their differences, they were finding common ground. The Zarkon were peaceful explorers, much like the humans hoped to be. By the time they left the alien ship, plans were already being made for the repairs. But more than that, the foundations of a friendship between two species had been laid. As they re-entered the HSS Hope, Captain Harper looked at his team with a big smile. "Well," he said, "I'd say first contact was a success. Now the real work begins." The next few days were a flurry of activity. The crew of the HSS Hope worked tirelessly alongside their new Zarkon allies to repair the damaged alien ships. Dr. Maria Santos marveled at the organic technology of the Zarkon vessels. "It's like performing surgery rather than repairs," she said, as she carefully sealed a tear in one of the ship's hulls, using a specially designed organic compound. Lai Wei and a Zarkon scientist named Vex were working on improving the alien fleet's navigation systems. "If we combine our sensor technology with your organic interfaces," Lai explained, "we might be able to create a system that can predict and avoid asteroid collisions more effectively." Vex's leaf-like hair quivered with excitement. "Yes, this is why cooperation between species is so valuable. We each bring unique perspectives and abilities." Meanwhile, Amir Khan was teaching some of the Zarkon his piloting techniques. The aliens were fascinated by the human approach to space navigation. "You mean you don't just feel the currents of space?" one of the Zarkon asked, confused. Amir laughed. "No, we rely on instruments and calculations, but maybe we could learn a thing or two from your method." As the repairs progressed, the mood was optimistic. It seemed like they would be able to get the Zarkon fleet moving again soon. But then, disaster struck. Alarms blared across both human and alien ships. Captain Harper rushed to the bridge of the HSS Hope. "What's going on?" he demanded. Dr. Tanaka, who was monitoring the long-range sensors, looked up with fear in her eyes. "Captain, we've got a massive asteroid on a collision course with the fleet. It's bigger than anything we've seen yet." Harper's face paled. He opened a channel to Zal. "Are you seeing this?" Zal's voice came through, tinged with worry. "Yes, Captain. This asteroid. Our ships cannot withstand an impact of that magnitude, even if fully repaired." "How long do we have?" Harper asked. "At its current speed, it will reach us in approximately 6 hours," Dr. Tanaka reported. Harper set his jaw. "Then we've got 6 hours to figure out how to stop it. Gather everyone, human and Zarkon. We need all minds working on this." Soon, the main conference room of the HSS Hope was filled with humans and aliens, all focused on finding a solution to their impending doom. Ideas were thrown around rapidly. Can we push it off course with our engines? What if we use the Zarkon's organic technology to create a giant net? Could we break it apart with targeted explosions? Each idea was considered and, unfortunately, dismissed as impractical given their limited time and resources. As the hours ticked by, tension grew. They were running out of time and still had no viable plan. Then, in the midst of the heated discussion, Lai Wei suddenly stood up, his eyes wide. "Wait, I think I have an idea." All eyes turned to him. "What if we combine our technologies? We use the HSS Hope's tractor beam to grip the asteroid, and then channel that energy through the Zarkon ship's organic hulls. If we position the fleet in a spiral formation, we might be able to create a slingshot effect and deflect the asteroid." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then the room erupted in excited chatter. Calculations were quickly made, and to everyone's amazement, it seemed like it might just work. "It's risky," Captain Harper said, looking at Zal. "Your ships will be put under immense stress. Are you willing to try it?" Zal's large eyes blinked solemnly. "We trust you, our Earth friends. We will try." With no time to spare, they put the plan into action. The Zarkon ships arranged themselves in a spiral formation, with the HSS Hope at the center. As the massive asteroid approached, Captain Harper gave the order. Activate tractor beam. Now. The ship shuddered as the beam locked onto the asteroid. Energy coursed through the connected Zarkon ships, their organic hulls glowing brightly. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like it wouldn't be enough. The asteroid loomed larger and larger in their view screens. But then, slowly at first, then more rapidly, the giant rock began to change course. It swung around their makeshift slingshot, missing the fleet by a hair's breadth, before hurtling off into space. A cheer went up from both human and alien crews. They had done it. Against all odds, they had saved the fleet. As the danger passed, Captain Harper looked around at the mixed crew of humans and Zarkon. Despite their differences, they had worked together and achieved the impossible. "Well," he said with a smile, "I'd say that's a pretty good example of what our species can accomplish together." Zal nodded in agreement, its leaf-like hair swaying gently. "Indeed, Captain. This is just the beginning of what our friendship could bring to the galaxy." With the immediate danger past and repairs to the Zarkon fleet nearly complete, both humans and aliens found themselves with something they hadn't had in a while: free time. Captain Harper and Zal agreed that this was a perfect opportunity for cultural exchange. The largest Zarkon ship, which they called the Mother Leaf, was transformed into a meeting ground. Humans and Zarkon mingled freely, each fascinated by the other. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was in her element, her translation device working overtime as she chatted with a group of Zarkon scientists. "So you communicate not just with sounds, but also with the movement of your leaf hair?" she asked, eyes wide with wonder. The Zarkon scientist, Nix, nodded, its leaf hair rippling in a complex pattern. "Yes, it allows for nuanced communication. Your species' facial expressions serve a similar purpose, do they not?" Yuki laughed. "You're right. I never thought of it that way." Nearby, Amir Khan was showing some young Zarkon how to play chess. The aliens were intrigued by the strategic game, their leaf hair twitching in concentration as they pondered their moves. "This game," one of them said, moving a knight, "it reflects how you humans think about conflict, yes, as a puzzle to be solved." Amir nodded, impressed by the insight. "That's a really interesting way to look at it. How do the Zarkon view conflict?" The young alien's leaf hair drooped slightly. "We seek to avoid it when possible. But when unavoidable, we see it as a disharmony to be rebalanced." Meanwhile, Lai Wei and Dr. Maria Santos were getting a tour of the Zarkon engine room from Vex. The organic technology continued to amaze them. "So the ship actually grows its own fuel?" Maria asked, watching a pulsing, plant-like structure that seemed to be producing a glowing liquid. Vex made a sound like tinkling bells, which they had learned was Zarkon laughter. "In a way, yes. It converts energy from surrounding space into usable fuel. Much like how your plants on Earth convert sunlight into energy." Lai Wei shook his head in amazement. The applications of this technology could revolutionize space travel for us. The efficiency, the sustainability. Vex's leaf hair quivered with excitement. "And your metal ships, so strong and resilient. Perhaps together, we could create something even better." As the day went on, more and more similarities and fascinating differences were discovered. The Zarkon were entranced by human music, their leaf hair swaying in rhythm to a violin piece played by one of the crew members. In return, they demonstrated their own art form, a type of telepathic group storytelling that left the humans in awe. Captain Harper and Zal watched all of this with satisfaction. "It's remarkable," Harper said, "how quickly they've all taken to each other." Zal's large eyes blinked slowly. "Indeed. It gives me hope for the future of our peoples." As the cultural exchange continued, Dr. Tanaka made an unexpected discovery. She had been studying the Zarkon language intensively, and something about it had been nagging at her. Finally, it clicked. "Captain." "Zal," she called out excitedly, rushing over to them. I found something incredible. Both leaders turned to her, curious. What is it, Dr. Tanaka? Harper asked. Yuki's eyes were shining with excitement. I've been analyzing the root structure of the Zarkon language, and I've found similarities with some of our ancient Earth languages. It's faint, but it's there. It's as if our languages might have a common ancestor. Zal's leaf hair stood straight up in surprise. But that would mean, Harper finished the thought, his voice filled with awe, that our species might have crossed paths before, a long, long time ago. The implications of this discovery were enormous. It suggested a connection between their species that went back possibly millions of years. As word of Dr. Tanaka's discovery spread, both humans and Zarkon were filled with a sense of wonder and kinship. What had started as a rescue mission had turned into something much more profound. The reunion of two long-separated branches of the same cosmic family tree. The cultural exchange took on new meaning as both species eagerly shared more about their histories, searching for other connections. Stories were compared, ancient myths analyzed, and scientific knowledge exchanged. As the day drew to a close, Captain Harper looked out at the mixed crowd of humans and Zarkon, all chatting excitedly about the possibilities this discovery opened up. He couldn't help but smile. You know, Zal, he said to the Zarkon leader, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Zal's leaf hair rippled in agreement. Indeed, Captain. The universe, it seems, has brought us together once again. This time, let us make sure we do not lose each other. The day had finally come. After weeks of repairs, cultural exchanges, and newfound friendship, it was time for the human crew to guide the Zarkon fleet back to Earth. As both species made final preparations, there was a mix of excitement and sadness in the air. Captain Jack Harper stood on the bridge of the HSS Hope, watching as the Zarkon ships formed up around them. Their leaf-like hulls gleamed in the starlight, now strong and healthy thanks to the combined efforts of both crews. All ships report ready, Captain, Amir Khan said from his pilot's seat. Harper nodded. All right then, let's go home. As one, the fleet began to move. The HSS Hope led the way, carefully guiding the Zarkon ships through the treacherous asteroid field. Thanks to their improved navigation systems, the journey was much smoother this time. During the trip back to Earth, humans and Zarkon continued to work together and learn from each other. Dr. Yuki Tanaka and a team of linguists from both species delved deeper into the possible connections between their languages. Lai Wei and Vex collaborated on designs for a new type of hybrid ship, combining the best of human and Zarkon technology. As they neared Mars, excitement began to build. Dr. Maria Santos couldn't stop smiling as she thought about the reception waiting for them on Earth. Can you imagine the look on people's faces when they see the Zarkon ships? She said to Harper. The captain grinned. It's going to be quite a show, that's for sure. Finally, Earth came into view, a small blue marble hanging in the vastness of space. For the Zarkon, it was their first glimpse of humanity's homeworld. Zal's voice came over the comms, filled with awe. Your planet, it's beautiful, so full of life. Wait until you see it up close, Harper replied warmly. As they entered Earth's orbit, they were met by a fleet of welcoming ships. News of their arrival had spread, and the whole world was watching. Cities across the globe had organized celebrations, and people gathered in front of screens to witness this historic moment. The landing site had been prepared in a large open area outside of New York City. As the ships descended through the atmosphere, they could see the massive crowd that had gathered to welcome them. When they finally touched down, cheers erupted from the crowd. It was a sound that could be heard from space. Captain Harper and his crew were the first to exit their ship. They were immediately swarmed by reporters and well-wishers. But all eyes were on the Zarkon ships, waiting for the alien visitors to emerge. A hush fell over the crowd as the largest Zarkon ship opened. Zal, accompanied by a small group of their people, stepped out onto Earth for the first time. Their leaf hair swayed gently in the breeze, and their large eyes blinked in the sunlight. President Kimberly Shaw stepped forward to greet them. On behalf of the people of Earth, she said, her voice amplified for all to hear, "I welcome you to our world, friends from the stars." Zal bowed slightly, their leaf hair rippling in a pattern that Dr. Tanaka recognized as one of deep respect. "We thank you for your warm welcome," Zal replied, their words translated for all to hear. "And we thank you for the brave actions of your people who came to our aid when we were in need." The crowd cheered again, and many were moved to tears by this historic moment. In the days that followed, humans and Zarkon worked together to forge official alliances. Treaties were signed, cultural exchanges were planned, and joint scientific missions were organized. The discovery of the possible ancient connection between their species sparked a renewed interest in space exploration. Both humans and Zarkon were eager to search the galaxy for signs of their common ancestors and perhaps other long-lost cousins among the stars. As for the crew of the HSS Hope, they were hailed as heroes. But for them, the real reward was the friendships they had formed and the knowledge they had gained. On the evening of the final day of negotiations, Captain Harper found himself standing with Zal, looking up at the stars. "So, what's next for the Zarkon?" Harper asked. Zal's leaf hair rustled thoughtfully. "We will continue our explorations, but now with new friends by our side." "And you, Captain?" Harper smiled. "Oh, I think there's still plenty of adventure waiting for us out there. Maybe next time, we'll visit your home world." Zal made the tinkling sound of Zarkon laughter. "We would be honored. The galaxy is vast, but together, I believe we can uncover its secrets." As they stood there, human and alien side by side, both felt a sense of hope for the future. The rescue mission that had brought them together had opened up a new chapter not just for their own species, but for the entire galaxy. The adventure, it seemed, was only just beginning.